Hi everyone, I'm Ellie, the Implementation Consultant Team Manager, and today I'm joined by my colleague Olivia as we discuss inventory management must-haves. And by the end of this webinar, you'll have gained insight into how Merlin can support you get on top of your practice inventory. Now, efficient management of veterinary inventory is fundamental to a thriving practice. It guarantees that your essential supplies are on hand when required, cuts down operational expenses, and it significantly influences the standard of care provided to your patients. But nevertheless, overseeing your inventory in a veterinary environment can be difficult due to the diverse range of supplies, medications, and consumables that you need. So without a strong system in place, practices face the danger of running out of stock, overstocking, and then subsequently wasting resources and incurring higher costs. And all of this can adversely affect your patient care and your financial stability.
Getting on top of your stock levels is the hard bit, especially if you're in an already established practice versus starting up brand new. But once you take the step into sorting it, you can then let Merlin help you out from there. I'm going to start by covering off the main features of Merlin's stock control module, then move on to some specific additions to keep in mind and make use of. I'm going to work through them chronologically. So first of all, I'm going to head up to Utilities and select Stock Control. From here, you'll see that there's various different tabs, and I'm going to start from the Stock Adjustment tab. Now, this tab in particular is the center of a lot of action and the place for making your manual updates to your stock levels. First key thing to note here is the stock level report down at the bottom left that can be produced. This is utilized as part of practice's manual stock take, and it allows users to print it out as a definitive list of all the stock. You can view the current levels here according to Merlin. On the right hand side, there's a blank column for users to manually write in the actual levels after counting the levels that they've physically got on their shelf. And following that, users are able to then manually update the stock levels in Merlin according to those actual numbers. At this point, it's really important to mention stock levels can be updated from two areas. You've got your overall current stock level here, or for any products that users do batch traceability on from the batch adjustment icon over here. So you would find your item that you want to put your batch traceability on, select it, press batch adjustment, and from this screen you can add in particular batch numbers, expiry dates, and you can also add in your batch stock levels. Any changes made in the batch adjustment area will then be reflected in the overall current level on that first screen here.
It's probably worth mentioning as well while we're here, when using the wholesale feature in Merlin and placing orders with an integrated supplier, arriving those orders into Merlin will automatically update those batch and stock levels.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. So obviously we've got stock management in Merlin, but we've also got wholesale, and that covers off keeping on top of your new stock that comes in, which is almost daily for many practices. And that wholesale module is built in, and it allows you to order via Merlin for those integrated suppliers and then also receive that stock directly into Merlin. So doing that means that your stock and your batch levels are being updated accordingly every time an order is arrived into Merlin. And this area is used more for your ad hoc updating of your stock levels. So if we just focus back on the stock adjustment screen, what we've got over here is our reorder, and we've got our max levels, and these are used in line with the auto order feature. This is really beneficial to avoid those awkward out of stock moments with your clients that could be avoided. So the reorder level kicks in when the product's current level matches or drops below that value. The amount then added to the auto order is based on that max value, stopping that product being overordered when using the auto order feature. So if we look at this particular product here, our Advantix, we can see that the current level is 4, the reorder level is 6, so we've already gone below that reorder level, and the maximum level is 10. So over in this order quantity column, we can see that Merlin is suggesting you to order 6 of these, meaning that would get that current level of 4 up to that maximum level of 10. So that's the quantity that would be added to the auto order. Now, we also know that there is a period of time between placing an order and the order then arriving in the practice and being processed through Merlin. So we've then got this pending column on the far right hand side here. And this column tells Merlin that there are items waiting to be received, so don't yet add this onto the auto order on the next run until that pending item has been received, adding then more control around any over-ordering.
So what would happen if the pending amount was less than the amount needed to get the stock level back up to the maximum level?
Okay, so if, for example, the order was placed yesterday, and since that order has been placed, that current level has dropped even further, the auto add would add more on top of that item, but again, only enough to ensure that that maximum level isn't ever exceeded. So if we look at this item down here, so Advocate Extra Large, we can see that the current level is 1, the reorder level was 3, and the max level is 4. We've got 2 pending, which would get that current level up to 3, but because our maximum level is 4, because that's now dropped since we placed the order, it's now added an extra 1 onto that order quantity, meaning 1 more would be added on that next auto add run. So moving on to the next tab, we've got stock variance, and this allows users to produce a report to display the variance between stock levels that you have according to Merlin versus what's been manually counted and on your shelf in practice. So I've selected application as an example here. And what you want to do is over on the right hand side, you want to input your numbers for what is actually physically available on the shelf. So I'm just going to go through and select the top few so we can produce a report. Any changes that I make, we can see that it's going green. Once I've input all of the numbers that I want to produce a variance report on, I first need to press save. Once I've saved that, I then want to press variance report. This can help identify key products that may have a large discrepancy and need the team to get better at remembering to dispense out.
That would definitely be useful for consumables that are commonly forgotten about, like catheters and inpatient dog food, or items that are knowingly free of charge on a health plan. I think it's quite common that these are forgotten and never have an accurate stock level.
Exactly. So looking at this one here, we can see that we've got quite a lot of variances here, especially at this top one. So the stock level according to Merlin is 7, but what we've got on the shelf is 2. And the same for this one down here. The stock level is 4, but what we've actually got on the shelf is 10. So we've got 2 different variances there. One of them you've got more, one of them you've got less. But being able to produce a report like this, it allows practices to put actions in place and then compare their reports month on month. And it'll give practices actual data to then hopefully show improvements and decreases in those variances. Now, a really interesting one that often hits hard is the stock evaluation tab. From this screen, you can see the actual monetary value of the stock levels you are holding in practice according to Merlin. So I've pulled up Advocate as a specific example, as this is a commonly overstocked item. Now, being able to review this area and see that you're currently holding overall at the bottom, we've got a total value of over £4,000 worth of Advocate sat on the shelves. And then we can break it down into our particular sizes. And we can see on this one, for example, we're holding over £1,300 of this particular size Advocate on the shelf. It often leads to users rethinking their ordering habits, looking at their ordering levels, and then making use of those reordering max levels to avoid these potential monetary losses to over-ordered items then potentially going out of date. So this is a key one to keep track of. Jumping to stock level, this is just an at-a-glance overview of current stock levels for all products, and it provides a really handy visual reference for users. Now, the last two, we've got stock transfer and stock movement, and they somewhat coincide with each other. Now, I'm going to start with stock transfer, and it's pretty much what it says on the tin. It allows users to digitally transfer stock that is moving physically around the practice. Now, at this point, I do just want to mention making use of stock centres. Each site on Merlin has the ability to create their own stock centres for a more transparent view of the stock movement as it moves around the practice, as you can move stock around these stock centres. For example, adding in the care of the home visit vets or farm vets, or you could also add consultation rooms or the prep room where stock is commonly moved to. And this means that any stock that's taken into a car, for example, isn't then left rolled and hidden under the passenger seat to then go out of date. because now there's not only the individual being more conscious of taking but then returning their stock to the correct stock centre, but there's also that full digital traceability of where stock has gone when you make use of those stock centres.
Are there any reporting capabilities around stock centres then?
So a good question. So there's a really handy report under the standard reports called Stock Centre Unused Stock. And this is where it will list a number of unsold stock items within each stock centre. So on this particular report that I've pulled up, I'm specifically looking at Cat's Van. We can see that they are holding 20 mils of Euthytal, 2 bottles of 32ml dog Metacam, 15 Sinulox tablets, and so on. We can see that all of these are just sat in that particular vet's car, and all of these need to be moved back into main site stock using the stock transfer so they don't get left in there and end up going out of date. So to demonstrate how it works, I am going to go for something quite simple, and I'm going to move my stock from my main site and my main stock centre to also a user that's at my main site, but I'm going to put it into one of the vet's cars. So we'll go for Hannah's car. I'm going to search for Metacam, as this is what she needs to take out on her visit with her. And I'm going to go for my 10ml dog here. Now what I can see currently over on the far right hand side, that currently in my source stock centre, we've got 4 of these in stock. Before I select it to move it down, I want to insert my default transfer quantity. So I'm going to take 2 with me because I'm going on 2 visits. And now that I'm ready to move it, I'm going to press my down arrow. What I now get is a pop-up that's asking me, these are the 2 batches of this particular Metacam that you've got in stock, and I need to put my quantity of 2 against the correct batch. So it's this bottom one that I'm taking with me because I've checked it. So I'm going to enter a 2 into there and click away, and we can now see that my quantity of 2 has been applied to this particular batch. Press OK, and that has now listed this down at the bottom here. If there's several other items that I want to transfer, I can search for them and I can build up my transfer list, ensuring I change my default transfer quantity each time depending on how many I'm taking. And then once I'm ready, I'm going to press transfer stock. I get a pop-up to confirm that the stock has been transferred, and I can immediately see that my quantity has now gone down to 2 from my source stock site where I've taken that Metacam from. That now directs us nicely into the stock movement tab that I said coincides nicely with the stock transfer tab. So jumping into there, I'm going to select all, and just at the top here, initially we can see that we've got that quantity of 2 Metacam decreasing by 2 sat here with that appropriate batch level. This is at my stock centre of Isha. If I now jump into Hannah's car, we will immediately see that that same item there has increased by 2 and is now sat on this stock centre for Hannah's car. So that has immediately gone through. Jumping back into my main stock centre, the purpose of this tab is to show all stock movement and for all varying different reasons. The screen itself displays the description, it displays the stock centre, date and timestamps, quantities moved, relevant batches, the specific reason, the user that was logged into Merlin and performed the stock movement. We've got the client, which is relevant for any treatments that were given, and then also the overall stock level following that movement. There are a number of different reasons, including stock transfer, as just discussed, updating stock control, arriving orders, credit adjustments, stock alignment, and then also your standard treatments, as I briefly mentioned. If it is a standard treatment, users can then see the client name of who it was dispensed to. So this would also be quite useful as a quick reference following any potential product recalls. Merlin does have various reporting capabilities on treatments given, but this area does also give those indications of products, specific batches used, and the client that they went to. So that now closes off the walkthrough of the full stock control feature within Merlin. However, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are some other key elements that will help practices master their inventory. So Olivia, from your time in practice, can you think of any frequent frustrations off the top of your head that made keeping on top of stock particularly difficult?
So other than some of the points you've already covered with stock going into cars but not transferred from main stock levels, there are a couple of annoyances that we did used to have. One being how easy it was to forget to price out common consumables that don't necessarily have a batch or label requirements. But I also have memories of the vets doing an end of day panic because the controlled drugs register hadn't been complete for the day, or the totals didn't match, and it was a case of revisiting every patient that day to confirm their entry had been handwritten in the book.
Yeah, okay, and I can't imagine you're alone there because I definitely experienced that during my time in practice too, so I'm sure a lot of people have. And thinking back to it now, knowing what I know now with Merlin's capabilities, it could have been so easily supported and frustrations lessened, but it's better to learn late rather than never. And this puts us in a position where we can ensure all of our customers learn and get the best out of Merlin for everything it can do. So, starting with the first point about basically better tracking of your consumable levels, the solution will likely be familiar to most Merlin practices, and that's making use of composites within code entry. So Merlin specifically calls them composites, but other terms for them in practice that you may hear are bundles or bolt-ons. Now I've pulled up a non-stock item that is my castrate dog 10 to 25 kilogram. The point of creating composites is that it allows users to make a set bundle of codes, which gives the ability to sell out several items automatically by selecting one single item from your treatment list when you're dispensing. This means that users can create a composite for operations such as a dog castrate, and it's made up of everything that goes into the operation, including the items commonly forgotten such as catheters, buster collars, medication to go home, and other procedures and medications that are often given. When users create these composites, you have various options available, such as whether to include additional charges. So if I go in here and just edit one of these, my Metacam oral suspension for going home, for example, we can see all the various different options that we've got here. So for example, will this be an additional charge or is there no charge for it because it's absorbed and covered as part of the overall procedure cost? Whether the item is going to be destocked, whether the item is displayed on the history and subsequently on an invoice. So that one might sound a bit odd and it relates to destock only here. But what it means is that all of the consumables, such as even your needles, your swabs, they can all be included and they can be destocked, but not necessarily need to show on an invoice. Items can be set as opt-in, which basically allows them to be optional, and it allows you to then potentially add in various different options when it comes to creating your composite. So for example, on this particular castrate dog that's 10 to 25 kilograms, I've added in various buster collar sizes. So at the point of dispensing, that means I'm not tied to just one. I can select the appropriate one at the time of dispensing that's actually going to fit my patient. Now, in addition to this, without getting too complex for a webinar, there is also the ability to make composites within composites. So creating basic bundles to sit within other bundles or composites. And an example of this could be creating an intravenous fluid therapy composite that you then add into all of your procedures that include GA, such as your dog castrate. And this means it would save time, meaning all of your IVFT items don't need to be added for every GA procedure that you make in code entry because you're just adding that composite every time at the click of a button. So looking at my IVFT composite, I can see these are all the items that are included. So I've got my giving sets, my different catheter sizes, my different fluid options. And what I can do is I can add this now into here by selecting all codes. I'm just going to search for IVFT, select the one that I want by double clicking it. And you can see here that it's now displaying these options as I add in this composite. Now you may notice there's two items here that say copy composite item or inherit composite item, and it is one to pay close attention to, as selecting inherit means that if any change is made to these original items, then these changes will be inherited by that composite. Copying it means it will copy it as it is now, and any changes made to those items in the future will not be inherited into the composite. It can all feel a little bit complicated and overwhelming at first, but we've got a great team of consultants here who can support all of our practices in the creation of these. And usually what we find is once one is made, a lot of our users then fly through it and find all sorts of ways and all sorts of composites to make life a lot easier in practice.
Yeah, I agree. We've also got guidance on how to create these available via the help icon within Merlin, as it can be really easy to forget when you've not created one for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great resource to always have for a bit of self-directed learning because it's not something that practices are constantly making. Now, onto another point that you made in relation to the upkeep of paper-controlled drugs registers. I've also got a lot of memories of that end of day panic that no one's done the register for the day, and then vets actually having to stay over and go back through all the patients from the day to ensure that all were accounted for. First thing on that is that there is the ability to pull up a quick report for specific meds for the day instead of having to trawl through patient records, clinical notes, or diary appointments to find out who's had particular controlled drugs that day. So users can make use of the report wizard to produce custom reports. And as an example, pulling up any patients that have had a certain medication such as Comfortan, also including the amount. So I've gone into utilities and reports and I'm now in the specific report wizard tab. And what I want to focus on is on the right hand side, I'm going to select my treatment type. So for Comfortan, I know that's in my injection stock. And then I want to search for my particular code, which is Comfortan. I'm going to select that and move that over and only look at Comfortan for the time being. I want to input my treatment item date. So I'm going to go back a couple of days to today. And then in terms of the clients that I want it to pull up, I want it to search for absolutely everyone. So in my client area, I'm going to put 0 to triple Z in my surname, and that simply just means it's going to capture absolutely every client, no matter what their surname is listed as. In terms of the information I want to display, I want it to display my client, I want it to display my patient, and then I also want it to display my treatment. And what I now need to do is press list, and this will display the results of this query. Now that this is displayed, the key things I can note here is that we've got 3 clients that fit the criteria. I can see the client details here. Moving along the list, I can see that I've got my patient name here. So we've got the 3 patients and all of their patient information, such as species, breed, gender, date of birth. And then under my treatment description column, able to see the name of the treatment that they've had. Now, because I know I'm only looking for one treatment, I can see all 3 are Comfortan. And at the very end, I can then see the quantity specifically that each one of those has had, making this so much easier for me to then either just use this as a reference list and use this to fill in my controlled drugs register, or if I want to, I can also export this to a CSV file and work from it that way. Now, even more useful than that is that we've got an integration with a cloud-based electronic controlled drugs register. The product itself is called VetSA and it's from a partner of ours called Medeus. And it simply replaces the need for your paper-based recording and it makes the whole process so much more efficient. The product can be utilised on your computers but also as you're moving about on tablets and phones as well. The integration means that once a user has dispensed a drug via Merlin, all of the relevant details will push through into VetSA with the patient name, the drug details, including your quantities or volumes given. This then sits on VetSA as a pending item, ready for an admin user to sign off and confirm those entries. All of those entries are stored on a daily entry screen, completely replacing the need for the paper copy whilst improving compliance and reducing manual hours spent chasing those entries. It has various other features, including reporting, tasks, support with stock takes. And if you do want to know more about this, please reach out because we can put you in contact with our partner for more in-depth demos and any questions you may have around it. Olivia, in relation to what you said previously, do you think that this would have been beneficial back when you were in practice?
Oh yeah, 100%. So the fact that it auto transfers the amounts basically straight into the controlled drug book would remove so much human error, especially for something as important as monitoring and keeping on top of controlled drugs. Did I see something in there about hub wastage as well?
You did. So without going into too much detail, as Modeus are the experts in the product, but it does have the functionality to be able to add and set up a hub wastage for every transaction or administration of a drug, really keeping tight on those stock levels, as that is something that's usually recorded in your paper-based controlled drugs book. Now, keeping on top of integrations, another one we have with Merlin is the VetCheck integration. The product itself has heaps of features for improving practice efficiency, with digital workflows, e-signing, and specific ones with inventory management, as it's got the ability for some auto-charging from VetCheck back into Merlin. To give a bit of background on the use case for VetCheck, so when a patient arrives physically into practice for their stint as an inpatient, via Merlin, they can be checked into VetCheck, and it will then send them onto the beginning of their digital workflow. This includes digital hospital forms. Now, Olivia, as someone who has a lot of experience specifically as an inpatient nurse, I'm sure you're quite familiar with the process of a patient being due some meds, drawing it up, administering it, writing it on the paper hospital chart or inpatient form, then going to find a free computer to then add it onto their clinical record, and then doing that repeatedly over and over again for every patient in a never-ending loop.
Oh, yeah. Time would absolutely fly, and you'd think, well, how is it time to give the patient their next lot of medication?
Precisely. So what VetCheck offers is the ability to be doing your rounds with an iPad or a tablet with every patient's hospital chart on that via VetCheck. So that means when you administer the meds and you input it onto that digital hospital chart, it then also adds it onto the patient record in Merlin. To ensure all of that is collated in one place and give the option of reviewing before officially invoicing, it drops it into the pre-invoice state within Merlin. So this allows users to go into pre-invoice, review what's in there for the day, for the morning, for the afternoon, and then invoice all items in one go. It completely removes that back and forth and duplicate entry of manually writing amounts down, then having to re-enter those again on the computer. It also means that stock levels throughout the day are current, as anything in pre-invoice is accounted for and reflected accurately in Merlin. Meaning, even if the items are left until later in the day for official invoicing, there's still an accurate representation of the actual current stock level, because it takes all of this into account when in the pre-invoice state. Now again, if you would like to know more about VetCheck and its full capabilities, and you'd be keen to arrange a demo, we can put you in contact with our associates at VetCheck, so please reach out.
So that brings us to the end of this webinar on must-haves for inventory management. I hope that the insights and the strategies that I've shared have provided you with valuable tools to enhance your efficiency and organisation of your practice's inventory. Now, we completely understand that managing inventory can be challenging, but with the right approaches and digital tools, it can become a streamlined aspect of your operations, ultimately improving your patient care and optimising your practice's financial health. Now, before we wrap up, I've put some contact details on the top of the screen for anyone who would like to have some further conversations about what has been shown today, so please do reach out. Thank you.